Ladies and gentlemen, today's featured segment is presented to you by Radioactive Redhead. From Book 2 of the Warlock series, author Mike Bennett brings to life tales from distant lands, detailing the undertakings of special operators as they pursue an Iranian-funded menace. Operators roam from Kurdistan to Pakistan, and no stone is left unturned in Turkey. Will justice be brought to close the ledger for the tragic 1983 Beirut bombing? Join us as we present to you When Towers Fall. When Towers Fall, Chapter 2, Part 1. When the towers fell, the president had proclaimed, "Every nation, in every region, now has a decision to make. Either you are with us, or you are with the terrorists." Whether or not this was ill-advised to say publicly would be debated, but for a truly short period of time, the United States of America had a great deal of sympathy from the other nations across the globe, at least overtly. The Middle East is somewhat famous for its finicky and malleable approach to alliances, but its history is far deeper than the history of strategic partnerships that America has pursued. Still, lines had been drawn for the initial volley. Similarly, a resounding call to arms trumpeted with many halls of bureaucracy in the federal government. Between all the competing entities, at least a temporary truce was declared. The homeland had been threatened, of this there was no dispute. Cooperation across the intelligence community ensued, and the levers of power were properly aligned against Al-Qaeda and its allies. The linear thinkers brought full vengeance to the Taliban in Afghanistan. A cabal of non-linear thinkers thought it wise to foray into Iraq due to a policy to remove Saddam that dated to the Iraq Liberation Act, signed by President Clinton in 1998. Many plans were developed, with forced entry access considerations paramount. Swirling amongst all of the calculus were nations' considerations of loathing or fealty to Saddam Hussein. How did the Iraq chess piece play into the broader game of the Shiite-Sunni dominance between Saudi Arabia and Iran? What was the economic interplay of oil? So many variables. A U.S.-led invasion into northern Iraq via Turkey was slamming with a resounding no. Turkey had found zero obligation and was rooted in the NATO Charter, and Turkey was pressing hard to get into the EU. Several key members of the EU were steadfastly against regime change in Iraq. To make matters worse, the Barzani clan and others in the Kurdish Peshmerga had interests that aligned with the U.S. Since they had been the victims of the 1983 and 1988 massacres by Saddam, the Kurds were particularly motivated. Overland routes from Turkey were the only secure means to get to Kurdish enclave. The only problem was that in many experts' opinions, the Turkish and the Kurds were considered mortal enemies. Due to the military necessity of needing to open a front in the northern flank and managing the political nuance of embedding with the Peshmergas, the CIA assembled a team to work with the two most viable Kurd forces, the KDP and the PUK. SO3 Mehmet Ataturk had graduated the famous BUDS Class 234 and deployed to Afghanistan with SEAL Team 8 after initially conducting VBSS, Visit, Board, Search and Seizure operations in the Persian Gulf. Having spent his youth wrestling, he was a natural athlete and leader, so his call sign and nickname became Mojo during that first deployment. Due to the close cooperation between SOCOM and the CIA, a computer search spat out his name from a database based on language attributes. Because his father had grown up in Yukosova, Mojo had a little bit of the Kumanji dialect of the Kurd language along with the more native Turk woven into the fabric of his cradle languages. He had even scored a 2 out of 2 on his DLPT in Kurdish and 3 out of 3 in Turkish. Due to his combat proficiency as a SEAL, the agency would not take no for an answer from the DoD, and Mojo was seconded to the CIA to participate in unconventional warfare. He would even precede the 10th Group pilot team as he was attached to the deputy team's leader element as an interpreter and security guard. He first met his new team leader, Charlie, at the air base in Cyrillic. Charlie greeted him warmly. "Welcome, Mojo. We're really pleased to have you on the team." "I was pretty surprised to get the call," Mojo replied. "I am fairly junior for this sort of duty." Charlie diplomatically parried. Well, to be honest, your chain of command was reluctant to let you go for the same reason. But what I think carried the day was your shooter skill set. A deployment under your belt, and we could really use a terp. Yes, sir, Mojo replied. First thing, call me Charlie. No ranks here, we generally use call signs only. As the overall deputy team leader, Charlie was a fairly senior, a GS-15, with many deployments as a case officer across the Middle East under his belt. Unfortunately, you were not involved in our planning, but the laydown for you is fairly simple. You will accompany me anywhere I go. Our sector is in the zone controlled by the Patriot Union of Kurdistan, the PUKS. We'll focus on providing assistance to Jalal Talabani, as he is the leader of the PUKS. Our longer-term objective is the removal of Saddam, but a Sunni terrorist group operating in this area, Ansar al-Islam, is also an enemy of the PUKS, must first be dealt with. Mojo was tired from the flight, but inquired, "Okay, boss. Mind if I meet the rest of the team?" The two walked to the hangar where the team was assembled. In turn, Mojo met Fanta, Rogue, Ian, Eric, Blaze, and Drone. Most were case officers. Blaze was a communicator, and Drone was a paramilitary officer, a PMO. Other than Mojo, no one on the team had fewer than 10 years of service. Several had also done 8 years in the military before joining the agency. As time was short, the group loaded up in 4 land cruisers, 2 per vehicle. From this point on, Mojo was pretty much in Charlie's back pocket. Mojo drove toward the border crossing point, Kabur Gate. If this preview broadcast has piqued your curiosity, the book in its entirety will be available for purchase from Amazon.com. Simply search When Towers Fall by Mike Bennett and peruse a catalog of its latest works. Be sure to tune in to Radioactive Redhead to hear further excerpts from the Warlock series. This concludes today's featured segment from Radioactive Redhead. May your days be filled with good memories and laughter, and God bless.